What if the secret to living past 100 was not about what you do, but about what you stop doing? For the past several decades, researchers around the world have studied centenarians, people who live to 100 and beyond, with an almost obsessive focus on what they eat, how they move, how they sleep, and who they love. And those things matter. We have talked about several of them already on this channel. But there is a pattern on the other side of that equation. A habit so common, so normalized, so deeply embedded in modern life that most people never even question it, that appears with striking consistency in the histories of people who do not make it to old age in good health. And its absence appears with equal consistency in the lives of those who do. Today we are going to talk about what that habit is, where it comes from, why it is so damaging at the cellular level, and most importantly, how to break it starting today without turning your life upside down. In 1995, Dr. Thomas Perls at Boston University launched what would become the longest and most comprehensive study of centenarians ever conducted, the New England Centenarian Study. Over the following decades, his team studied more than 1,500 people aged 100 and older, examining their genetics, their lifestyles, their medical histories, their daily habits, and the environments they had lived in across their extraordinarily long lives. What they found consistently challenged the assumption that living to 100 requires exceptional genetics or extraordinary luck. Dr. Perls himself has stated publicly that he believes approximately 70% of how we age is determined by lifestyle factors, and only 30% by genetics. 70% within your control. But within that vast landscape of controllable lifestyle factors, one pattern stood out, not for its complexity or its difficulty, but for how invisible it had become to the people doing it. A pattern of chronic, low-grade, relentless overdoing. Researchers call it by several names in the scientific literature. Chronic stress loading, allostatic overload, physiological wear accumulation. Most of us call it simply never slowing down. And the damage it does inside the body after 60 is unlike almost anything else the research has documented. Let me explain what chronic overdoing actually does inside the body, because the mechanism is one of the most important things I have ever shared on this channel. When the body experiences any form of stress, physical, psychological, or environmental, it activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis. This system triggers the release of cortisol, the primary stress hormone, which prepares the body for action. Heart rate increases, blood pressure rises, blood sugar elevates, digestion slows, immune function temporarily suppresses. This is the fight or flight response, and in short bursts it is not just harmless, it is essential. The problem begins when this system is activated chronically, when the stressors never fully resolve, when the body never receives a clear signal that the threat has passed and it is safe to stand down. In that state, cortisol remains chronically elevated. And chronically elevated cortisol does something at the cellular level that researchers have only fully understood in the last 2 decades. It accelerates telomere shortening. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes, analogous to the plastic tips at the ends of shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, the telomere shortens slightly. When the telomere becomes too short, the cell can no longer divide. It becomes what researchers call senescent, a zombie cell that no longer functions properly but also does not die cleanly. These senescent cells accumulate in tissues and organs and release inflammatory molecules that damage surrounding healthy cells. This process is called inflammaging, the chronic low-grade inflammation that is now understood to be the biological engine driving most age-related disease. Heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, arthritis, osteoporosis. All of them are driven in significant part by inflammation and chronic stress. The habit of never fully resting, never fully recovering, never allowing the nervous system to completely downshift, is one of the most powerful accelerators of telomere shortening and inflammaging ever identified. A landmark study by Dr. Elissa Epel at the University of California, San Francisco found that women experiencing chronic psychological stress had telomeres equivalent to those of women 10 years older. 10 years of cellular aging. From stress. Not from smoking. Not from poor diet. From the chronic activation of the stress response that most people simply accept as a normal part of modern life. Now here is the nuance that I want to make very clear. The centenarians studied in the New England Study and in the Blue Zone research were not idle people. They were not people who avoided responsibility or challenge or hard work. Many of them had lived through extraordinary hardship, wars, poverty, loss, physical labor. What distinguished them was not the absence of stress. It was the presence of recovery. Consistent, deliberate, non-negotiable recovery built into every single day. The Sardinian shepherds walked miles every day in demanding terrain, but they also sat for long, unhurried meals and told stories for hours in the evening. The Okinawan elders maintained gardens and community roles well into their 90s, but they also practiced what they called hara hachibiyu, eating until 80% full, and observed a daily period of complete rest after the midday meal. The Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, one of the highest concentrations of centenarians in America, observed a weekly Sabbath, a full day of deliberate rest and spiritual renewal. Every week, without exception, not as a luxury, as a biological necessity that their community had built into its culture so completely that it required no willpower to maintain. The pattern across all of these populations is unmistakable. High engagement with life, combined with deep, consistent, deliberate recovery. Not one without the other. Both, always, together. So what is the specific habit that the research points to most consistently as the one to eliminate? It is the habit of continuous low-grade mental activation. The inability to be fully present in rest. The checking of phones during meals. The replaying of worries during what should be quiet time. The filling of every available moment with input. News, noise, scrolling, planning, problem solving. The feeling that sitting quietly and doing nothing productive is somehow wasteful or wrong. Researchers at Harvard University published a study in the journal Science that tracked the mental states of 2,250 adults throughout their days using a smartphone app that contacted them at random intervals. The question was simple. What are you doing right now? And is your mind on what you are doing? The results were striking. Participants reported that their minds were wandering, thinking about something other than what they were currently doing, 46.9% of the time. Nearly half of all waking hours spent mentally somewhere other than the present moment. And here was the critical finding. Mind wandering, regardless of what the person was doing, was consistently associated with lower happiness, higher cortisol levels, and reduced feelings of well-being. The wandering mind, the mind that cannot rest even when the body is still, is a chronically activated stress system. And a chronically activated stress system is a body aging faster than it needs to. Here are 4 specific recovery practices drawn from the centenarian research that you can begin incorporating into your daily life immediately. None of them require significant time. All of them are supported by peer-reviewed research on longevity and stress reduction in older adults. The first is the deliberate pause. This is the simplest and perhaps most powerful practice on this list. Once per day, ideally in the early afternoon, Stop all activity for a minimum of 10 minutes. No phone. No television. No reading. No planning. Sit comfortably. Look out a window if possible. Let your mind wander without agenda. This is not meditation in the formal sense. It is what researchers at the University of York call deliberate mind wandering, unstructured mental rest that allows the default mode network of the brain to consolidate memories, process emotions, and restore executive function. Research from the University of California found that unstructured rest periods during the day significantly improved memory consolidation and creative problem solving in older adults compared to those who filled every moment with structured activity. 10 minutes. Once per day. With absolutely nothing to show for it at the end. That is the point. The second is meal presence. The Okinawan and Sardinian centenarians did not eat while watching television. They did not eat while reading. They did not eat while scrolling through a phone. They sat. They tasted. They talked. They were fully present with their food and with whoever they were eating with. Research from the University of Vermont found that eating with full attention, without competing stimuli, not only improved digestion and nutrient absorption but also reduced cortisol levels measured immediately after the meal compared to distracted eating. The meal itself becomes a recovery period when approached with presence. And for seniors living alone, the practice of setting a proper table, sitting down, and eating with full attention transforms a potentially lonely experience into a daily act of self-respect that has measurable physiological benefits. The third is nature exposure. Across every long-lived population studied consistent exposure to natural environments, gardens, parks, coastlines, forests, appeared as a near-universal feature of daily life. This is not coincidence. Research from Stanford University found that a 90-minute walk in a natural environment significantly reduced activity in the subgenual prefrontal cortex, the brain region associated with repetitive negative thought patterns and rumination. But here is the important adaptation for seniors with limited mobility. You do not need to walk. You do not need to hike. A 2019 study published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that simply sitting in a garden or near a window with a natural view for 20 minutes produced measurable reductions in cortisol and improvements in mood and cognitive function comparable to light exercise. Sitting near nature. 20 minutes. That is a recovery practice with a century of anecdotal evidence and a growing body of peer-reviewed confirmation behind it. The fourth is what I call the completion ritual. One of the most consistent features of centenarian daily life was a clear psychological boundary between the active part of the day and the recovery part. A moment, often marked by a specific action, that signaled to the nervous system that the work of the day was done. For Sardinian shepherds it was the return of the flock at evening. For Seventh-day Adventists it was the lighting of candles at the start of Sabbath. For Okinawan elders it was the evening gathering of the moai. The specific action mattered less than its consistency and its meaning. Create your own. A cup of herbal tea prepared in a specific way at a specific time. A short walk around the garden at dusk. A particular piece of music played at the end of the day. The physical act of closing a notebook or turning off a lamp. Whatever action you choose, invest it with meaning. Let it become the signal your nervous system learns to recognize as permission to rest. Research from Baylor University found that people who had a consistent psychological work completion ritual reported significantly lower levels of intrusive thoughts about unfinished tasks during rest and sleep, and significantly higher quality sleep as a result. Your nervous system responds to symbols. Give it one worth responding to. I want to share with you what the research says happens inside your body when you begin practicing genuine recovery consistently. Because the changes are not just psychological, they are cellular. A study from the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine at Harvard Medical School found that a consistent relaxation response practice, any activity that reliably activates the parasympathetic nervous system, produced measurable changes in the expression of over 2,000 genes in participants over 60. Genes associated with inflammation were downregulated. Genes associated with cellular repair and longevity were upregulated. Genes linked to the telomere maintenance mechanisms that protect against premature cellular aging showed increased activity. 2,000 genes changed in expression by rest, not by drugs, not by surgery, by the deliberate, consistent practice of allowing the body to do what it was biologically designed to do. Your body knows how to heal itself. Your body knows how to slow its own aging. Your body has been trying to do exactly that every time you gave it a moment of genuine rest. The question is how often you have been giving it that moment, and how fully. We live in a world that has decided that busyness is a virtue, that productivity is the measure of a life well lived, that rest is something you earn after everything else is done. And so we push. We fill the silence. We check the phone one more time. We replay the worry one more time. We tell ourselves we will rest later, when things slow down, when the children are settled, when the finances are sorted, when everything is taken care of. And later never quite arrives. The centenarians knew something we have forgotten. That rest is not the reward at the end of a productive life. It is the condition that makes a long and productive life possible. That the body you want to live in at 90 is being built, or depleted, right now. And how you respond to the small stresses of Tuesday afternoon. And whether you eat your lunch with presence or distraction. And whether you sit in the garden for 20 minutes or scroll through your phone instead. And whether the end of your day is marked by a deliberate act of completion or simply trails off into restless semi-consciousness. The most radical thing you can do for your longevity costs nothing. Takes 10 minutes. Requires no equipment. And the people living the longest lives on earth have been doing it every single day. Give yourself permission to stop. Fully. Completely. Without guilt. Because stopping, really stopping, is not giving up on your life. It is how you keep it. Here is your assignment from today's video. Choose one of the 4 recovery practices we discussed. The deliberate pause, meal presence, nature exposure, the completion ritual. Just one. Decide right now which one fits most naturally into your life as it actually is, not as you wish it were. And do it today. Not as a test. Not as an experiment. As the beginning of a habit that the research suggests could add not just years to your life but life to your years. If this video gave you something real, please subscribe. Every week we bring you the honest, research-backed truth about what your body needs to thrive after 60. Share this with someone you love who never seems to stop. Because sometimes the most important thing we can give someone is permission to rest. See you in the next video.